Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Tanks. And it's the new year, and so I thought, what better way to bring in the new year than with a list of my favourite tanks from tiers 2 to 8. So starting off here with tier 2, there are many nice tanks that I like down at tier 2. For example, the Panzer I. I do very much like the Panzer I. The Tetrarch is nice. The T1E6 for the LOL value. The same with the T7 and the Light 6C. But my favourite tank, as we all probably know, is this little friend. It is the Panzer II. So why the Panzer II? Well, Panzer II comes with a very good gun for its tier, which is this 2cm Flak 38. It may not have the most penetration, but it's good enough to deal with tier 2 tanks. It's not particularly accurate, but at the ranges that tier 2 battles take place, you can easily just sort of burst at people and they'll happily get penetrated, because that's very good penetration for its tier. It has very good well, it has a very good aim time, and it has 10 shells in the magazine with a rapid reload time for the drum magazine. Plus, it has pretty good armor for its tier. 30mm at the front. If you angle it a bit, shells will bounce off you, and it's just a fun all-round tank to drive, because it can get up to 40 km/h. It's got pretty good maneuverability. I mean, 46 degrees per second reverse speed. Yeah, the reload times are good, the aim time, the accuracy, it's all -10 gun depression, 44 degrees per second turret reverse. It's just a all-round fun tank to drive at tier 2, and for that reason this has got to be my favourite tank at tier 2. So now we move up to tier 3, and there's only really a couple of choices for me. There's either the Panzer II, which recently acquired, the Krupp, or the Panzer S35. And I think I will probably go with the Panzer S35. Why not the 2J, you ask? Well, the 2J is fun, but that autocannon, whilst it's good at beating up tier 2 tanks, tier 3 and 4, it's just not cutting it. But the Panzer S35, whilst it does see tier 5s, it sees them very rarely, because tier 3s don't have preferential matchmaking in the sense that they only see a tier above them. This can still see tier 5, however, it will only see it very rarely. It mostly sees tier 3 or tier 4 games, mostly tier 3. And at tier 3, this armor is very good. Because if we take a look here at statistics, no, that's not it. Not statistics. Although if we do actually go back to statistics here, see on the Panzer II, 58% win rate in battles, 376 battles played, 49% hit accuracy, damage ratio 1.53, destruction ratio 1.8, armor use efficiency 1.03. I mean, maximum damage in a battle 999, maximum destroyed in a battle 8, maximum XP. Yeah, I mean, that's in my Panzer II. I mean, if we look at my Panzer S35, 53% victory, 59% hit ratio, 1.13 damage ratio, 1.47 destruction, 0.82 armor use efficiency, but yeah. So why would I choose the Panzer S35? Well, vehicle details here. Turret armor 56mm. That's very good at tier 3. That's very strong armor at tier 3. And 36 hull armor is not as good as the French Panzer S35. Well, just the French Somme S35. But this has got some sloping, some rounding, I mean, angling this tank is very effective. These are all very sloped sides, and they're pretty thick as well. I mean, 35 side and hull armor, 46 side and rear turret armor. It's a strong tank, with a rapid-fire 47mm gun. If we have a look here, 55 average penetration. That's all right for tier 3. 52 average damage, 47mm. I mean, it's got a rapid rate of fire, 27.6. 1.1 second aim time, which is phenomenal. 0.39 accuracy is meh, it's alright accuracy. I mean, 1.12 aim time, 0.38 with the 100% crew here. 2.1 second reload time. It's a rapid fire gun, which means that you can quickly melt people with this gun, plus bouncing their return shots with this armor. If you keep it at range, angle this armor, you will bounce many shots, and for that reason it's just a fun thing to play, because after all it does get that preferential matchmaking for being a tier 3 premium tank. It gets that preferential matchmaking. So now we move on to tier 4, and the tier 4, it is a toss-up between the Matilda, the Hetzer, or the Valentine II. And the Valentine II, it's very strong. It only sees its own tier, but it doesn't have great. It doesn't have a great gun, really. This gun at tier 2 and tier 3 is alright. This 45mm, but at tier 4, not so much. It is a fun tank, definitely, but for pure value, I'm gonna say that it is a toss-up between the Matilda and the Hetzer. So I think I'm probably going to go with the Hetzer, because the Matilda is fun, definitely. I mean, that armor is godlike at tier 4, and the gun that it gets is OP, frankly. 121 penetration with this Mark 10B 2-pounder with the Little John adapter is very good. I mean, it's decent dispersion, with a good aim time, with amazing accuracy. It's an infantry tank, so it has very strong armor, but for the pure derp factor, I'm going with the Hetzer, because 75mm of armor for the Matilda is good, but 60 hull armor at the front of this thing, sloped, is really good. And this gun mantlet is also a really good gun mantlet as well. It doesn't have the most HP, being a tier 4 tank destroyer, but it is just a superbly fun thing to play, because once you fully upgrade this thing, I've got clutch braking going on in here, and clutch braking with this tank means that you can outturn some of those tier 4 mediums, and some of the medium tanks that will try and circle you. And it has a good choice of guns, because you can either go with the derp factor, like I've gone with this 105 howitzer, or you can go with the traditional tank destroyer 75 Pak 39, which people do go with. But for the pure derp factor, having this gun, if we have a look at it here, 53 average penetration at tier 4 means that you can one-shot several tier 4 tanks. For example, the T28. I mean, this is the up-armoured version, so it's slightly more difficult to actually kill it, because it does have 50 armour. But then, if you get it at the rear, or the sides even, I mean, it's a huge target. The non-armoured T28, I say non-armoured, this thing basically is unarmoured, but the standard tech tree T28s, you can one-shot them almost every time. I mean, the SARL, what's this thing, like, 40 armor. You can one-shot these things. What else in the tech tree can you one-shot with this thing? One-shot SAU 40s. You can one-shot Hetzers from the side, or if the shell arcs underneath it. All of these things you can one-shot, except for the Lee, which will take 2 shots. But the T40 in places at the front, you can one-shot. These things you can all one-shot. Russia, you've got A20s, T50s, T28. All of these things you can one-shot. What about in Germany? Germany, one-shot, one-shot, one-shot. That will take several shots. as may this thing. Let's have a look. Vehicle details. Yeah, 50 frontal hull. So a couple of these things will take more than one shot, but you can wreck things with this. I mean, cruisers, yeah, easy. Tier 3 cruisers, those things are easy. Electo, Covenanter, those things are easy. Same with the Crusader. I mean, the Matilda will prove a problem, but a couple of shots into that and that'll go down. The Grant, the same with the Lee. The Valentine as well, that'll be a problem, but I mean, M5A1 Stuart, yeah, you can one-shot that. These things you can one-shot, especially the Type 95, those things are fun to shoot at. This thing you could probably one-shot. The Swedish things I'm not too sure about, but probably. So, yeah, the pure derp factor, plus that pretty good tier 4 armor, means that this thing is just a really fun thing to play because it's got great maneuverability with a good selection of guns. The derp factor is amazing. Plus, it's tiny. It's really low to the ground. It has a good camo value, which is nice for lying in wait so that you can dirt people with HE. Plus, it means that it's not useless in tier 5 and 6 games because high explosive rank does not matter, only armor. So if you find yourself against a tier 6, I mean, I did like 440 damage to a T1 heavy. I mean, just with this tank, because it penetrated the side of the tank. So, I mean, the derp factor means that you will constantly get like 150 damage even if it doesn't penetrate due to splash damage, which means that you're not totally useless in a high tier game. So that's nice. Now we move on to tier 5. Now, there are many good tanks at tier 5 in my arsenal. For example, the KV-222. The AT2, the Sherman III I also very much like, but as much as I do like my Sherman III, I am going to go with the Churchill I, because, look statistics here, well here's my Hetzer, 404 battles, 51% victory. I mean, armor use efficiency, not that great, but destruction ratio 1.16, damage ratio 1.36. But I'm going to go with the Churchill I because it's just a good, solid tier 5 heavy. I mean, there's my Mark of Excellence, obviously, so I have a Mark of Excellence on it, which means that I must at least like it to do well in it. And that's because it feels like a proper tank. I mean, it feels like you're in some big armoured behemoth driving over the battlefield. The armour is not that great, but if you angle it at the sides are flat and you can bounce things off of them. So whilst they're not particularly raw in thickness, angling and side scraping with this tank is very effective. The turret not so much, turret isn't that great, but the top gun that it gets, this high velocity Vickers, is a very good tank gun. 145 average penetration, 135 average damage. That's above average 75mm damage right there. That's very good penetration for a tier 5, especially on a heavy tank. It has a pretty standard aim time. It has alright dispersion, decent enough. It has a pretty good rate of fire, and it has a lot of health, which is what you need for a tank. And it's just good, solid, reliable British engineering. Plus, it has got these exposed tracks, and whilst exposed tracks are both a hindrance and a godsend, it does mean that they do act as spaced armor from the front. If a shot hits the track, then it will just hit the track and it will blow off the track. It won't do anything further, which means that the tracks can eat many shots. And it's just a really cool looking tank. It's a fun tank to have. When I first got the Churchill I loved it. I had to sell it for credits at one point, but I kept the crew. I've kept this crew from 50% rookies to where they are today. And yeah, this tank is just amazing. It's definitely my favorite tier 5 tank. So now let's move on to tier 6, and The Churchill gun carrier. Well, I do like the Churchill gun carrier, but it is not my favourite tank. I may have a mark of excellence on it, but that's beside the point. KV-2 is fun, as is the box tank, but I don't do particularly well in those. The Achilles I've just got. The Panzer IV is quite nice. The Churchill 7 is definitely one of my favourite tier 6s, because it is just a Churchill, and it has got good armour as well. I mean, 152 armour at the front of the turret and things. It feels like a tank again because you're in a Churchill, and Churchills are the definition of tank. I mean, they're just big armoured things that you'd roll in the battlefield. I mean, when you get into a Churchill in World of Tanks, you do not regret it. You love Churchills. I love Churchills. But my favourite tank gotta be the Sherman Firefly, because it's a Sherman, an M4 Sherman, with a much better gun. This gun, 171 average penetration is fantastic, 150 average damage. It has got a good rate of fire, with a good aim time. The dispersion is lacking, but it is a good gun. It means that this tank can serve either as a medium tank or as a sniper, and as a sniper it does very well. It's also pretty good at firing on the move, hence why I've fitted vertical stabilizers. If we check my statistics in the Sherman Firefly, 130 battles, 52%, 52% victory ratio, 0.85 damage ratio, 1.02 destruction ratio. Armor use efficiency is crap because it's a Sherman, so it has crap armor. But I did manage to get a mark of excellence. I've dropped down because I haven't played it in a while, but the armor is definitely lacking. Yes, it's a Sherman, but its mobility is also lacking. However, the traverse speed is good for the hull. It's just the horsepower per ton ratio and the power to weight is just, well, they're both the same. But the problem is this engine. It's not historically the same engine as you would get on the Firefly, because otherwise, if it had the mobility of the Sherman and the top speed of the Sherman and the dogfighting ability of the Sherman to circle things, it would be OP. But I mean, it's a great looking tank. It's got a fantastic gun, and it's just a really fun thing to drive. I mean, you can easily poke places. I mean, you can poke out of cover, fire, poke back in again. It's good at snapping off shots. It has good gun handling. That's it. What's the tire traverse? The tire traverse is quick, 44.8 seconds. Oh, I mean, well, there's a snow, so that's fun. But the tire traverse is good, the reload time good, everything about the gun is good, and it's mounted on a good, reliable tank chassis. And that's why the Firefly is my favourite tank at tier 6. It's just a fun thing to drive. Now we come to the higher tiers, and the higher tiers are things I don't have much in. Probably tier 7 has got to be, excluding tier 1, because I only have 2 tanks. But tier 7 has got to be my least populated area of tanks. I have got 1 legit tank in my arsenal at tier 7. All of the others are premium. But I do have some good tanks. This thing is like a mini Tiger II, and that's fun. The Snow Hetzer again is fun. Okay, had enough of that. But yeah, this thing is like a mini Tiger II. It's less armoured, but it's still fun. The IS-2 is just the IS-2. I mean, that's a fun tank to have around, that big gun. Ah, yes, it's fun. The ISU is a very rapid fire tank destroyer. That's fun. The Jagdpanther. This is just a Jagdpanther. How can you not like the Jagdpanther? I've wanted the Jagdpanther for ages, and I finally have it, and it's amazing. But I'm going to say the AT-15A is my favourite tank at tier 7. Because the armour, 228 frontal hull armour, is very thick frontal hull. 152 at the side is still good, and 101 at the rear is still also pretty good. It has got a large amount of health, 1050. I mean 1050 for a tier 7 tank destroyer compared to 870 to another tank destroyer at the same tier. The British have always had a lot of HP for their tank destroyers, and this is no exception. This is a very good tank destroyer. It's got very strong armor. It of course does have the old British weak spot of the top machine gun turret, but it's got the same 17-pounder that you see on other tanks at this tier. Well, that you see on other British tanks. It's a reliable gun, the 17-pounder, and it is slightly losing its effectiveness at tier 7. At tier 7, you will start seeing 20-pounders coming out, being broken out, and slightly larger caliber guns. But 171 penetration is still respectable at tier 7. I mean, it's certainly still reliable enough to not warrant having to use premium. It's got good damage. Again, the same alpha damage. It's got a pretty good rate of fire, 14 rounds per minute, meaning 3.7 reload. I mean, it's a rapid fire gun, doing constant 150 average damage, plus penetrating most of what it hits. Highly accurate, 0.32 with a 1.9 second aim time. It's a very, very good sniping gun. Mounted on... yes, okay, it's a tree, I know. But it's mounted on a very strong chassis. It's not so good in dogfighting because, well, 26 degrees per second traverse. It's 20 km/h speed limit, 9.97 horsepower per ton ratio. It's not the definition of mobile, definitely. However, if you mount up this thing with, you know, a heavy spawn liner, which I should probably get, but I need more credits really. I need to wait for a sale. But it's a solid, reliable tank with a solid, reliable gun. It's just a very fun thing to play. People underestimate it because people see an 8050A and then they're like, oh, the gun's too small. So they look at the gun and they go, nah. It's a gun that's good at tier 6, not so good at tier 7, but it still finds its place for me at tier 7 on this tank, and that's why this tank is my favourite tank at tier 7. Now we move up to tier 8, the big boys. So I've got 11 of these things, all of them premium tanks, of course. But don't worry, I am working towards getting a legit tier 8, slowly but surely. And if I show you my statistics of the where are we? Come on, let's find it. There you go, 80-15A. Only played 41 battles, but a 2.02 armor use efficiency, 1.03 destruction ratio, 0.86 damage ratio. Let's have a look at this mark of excellence. 30, yeah, okay. Haven't played it that much apparently. I got it ages ago, but I've only apparently played 41 battles in it. Don't know why, it's amazing. But yeah, there you go. Maximum damage in a battle, 2,139. I mean, that's all very nice. But now we come to tier 8, and my Rheinmetall Scorpion is a love-hate relationship. I love it because it's a good tank destroyer with a good gun, but RNGesus, when I got this tank, RNGesus just thought this guy is going to be my punching bag, because it says it has got 0.28 dispersion. 0.29, sorry, 0.29 dispersion. Hetzer has that, but yet fully aimed shots just miss when they quite clearly shouldn't. When I use this tank, I snap off shots, they go nowhere. I'm fully aimed, it'll go into the ground. It's fully aimed, it'll hit the rock beside the tank that wasn't even in the aim circle. And it's just the anti-RNGesus gun. And that's why it's not my favourite tank at this tier. The Liberty is a fun tank to drive. I do like this paint scheme and the way that it drops off towards the back of the tank. This is a very OP tank. It's a very good tank. and I do like it. The 88 Jagdtiger as well. This is most definitely one of my favourite tank destroyers, because it's just a huge boxy Jagdtiger. Look at it. It's a Jagdtiger at tier 8, and I love Jagdtigers. I'm working my way towards my tier 9 Jagdtiger and tier 10 Jagdpanzer E100. But for now, this will do, and it is the Jagdtiger 88. But it is not my favourite tank. This is, of course, going to be my favourite tank, the KV-5. And, well, look at the statistics of my KV-5. 94 battles played, a 60% victory ratio. Armor use efficiency 1.17, destruction ratio 1.29, damage ratio 0.78. Maximum damage in a battle 3,553. I mean, max XP in a battle that much. Max destroyed in a battle 5. Really, only 5. Spotted and destroyed ratio there. Look at the awards. How far away am I? Oh, pretty far. Okay, that was my own. That's just for my own personal check. But why do I love the KV-5? Well, just look at it. It's a KV-5. Have you never heard the legend of the KV-5? The gun is awful, frankly. It's horribly inaccurate with a 0.43 dispersion, a 2.9 second aim time. It's got good damage for a 107. It's a 107, so 300 average damage is good, but the average penetration 1.67, not great. Average penetration, even with APCR, is outclassed by standard AP on many of these tanks here, such as the IS-3A, the Liberty, the Patriot even. So it doesn't have a good gun, but the armor and survivability makes up for it. 1,780 HP, a lot. Quite frankly, a lot for a tier for a tier 8 heavy tank. For a tier 8 heavy tank, that is a huge swathe of HP. Plus, it's got loads of armor. 180 at the front of the hull, 150, 140 at the rear. People will bounce off of your rear and side armor quite easily. 180 all round for the turret armor. It does have the standard weak spot. Well, the standard weak spots for a KV-5, which is this machine gun turret here, this little off turret here, plus the commander's cupolas. But then you can work your way around them by waggling your tank. If you waggle the tank, waggling the tank is very effective because rounded things like this, you can easily get bounces if you keep waggling the tank like that, just on it, just going left to right. Just A and D keys, mashing them. If you keep doing that, the effective armor of this thing doesn't change. However, the angle that you're hitting it at does, and with rounded things like this, if you waggle them, where they're aimed for, they may be aimed at center of mass, but if you wiggle it like that, the center of mass will change to here because they haven't moved their gun. So it'll hit there and it'll ricochet off because it's a rounded structure. So anyone that's played the IS-3, anyone that's played any Russian tank with a rounded turret, will know that the armor will be thickest at the sides of the turret if you're facing them from the front, because the effective armor may not change, but the effective angling of it does. That's what round things do. They get much more difficult to penetrate when they're rounded, because as they slope around, you get much more armor towards the sides. So you can sort of work your way around these weak spots, and either way, if people auto-aim at you, then they're just going to hit your strong armor anyway, and they'll just ping off your frontal hull. And side scraping with this tank is very effective as well. Waggling the turret, I often waggle the turret and waggle the hull, because these sloped sides, if you keep waggling them, people will bounce off of them, and just the whole armor itself is just very, very strong. And the KV-5, whenever I play, I always like to get up into the action. I like to take the hits, get up in people's faces, deal the damage to them, if the tank allows me to. Of course, I do realise limitations of things like the Scorpion G means that you can't do that. But the KV-5 is very much get in their faces, face hug them. Because when you get into people's faces, they panic, and they will just sort of shoot as quick as they can to try and penetrate. And they'll tend to not think, which means that you can start putting this terrible penetration to work, because penetration drops off with range. But when you're right up in people's faces, 167 pen is going to be 167 pen up in their faces, which means that because you're, face hugging them, their weak spots are just going to be easy to penetrate. So you can just aim at the weak spots, bang, you'll penetrate, because accuracy is negligible, because you're right up in their face. So the gun is bad at range, yes, but right up in people's faces where this thing does well is amazing. Plus, 102-ton tank, 1,200 horsepower engine, 40 km/h top speed. Yeah, this is very good for ramming things. The dream of every KV-5 driver is to just have a slope with loads of enemy tanks at the bottom that can't fight back, and you just drive down and you ram them all to death, because this is very, very good at ramming. You'll probably have seen videos on YouTube as to about ramming in this tank, and this tank is very good at ramming things. It's just an all-round fun tank to drive, and that's why this gets my favourite tier 8 tank. So those are my favourite tanks from tier 1 to 8 in World of Tanks. So I'll thank you all for watching, and goodbye.